When we think about the towering figures of the 20th century, our minds usually go to presidents, prime ministers, maybe some generals. But one of the most influential people of that entire era was a man who commanded no armies at all, Pope John Paul II. In this explainer, we're going to look at how this Polish pope didn't just lead a church, he actually helped reshape the entire world.
And if you want a quick snapshot of his character, just look at where this quote came from. That's not from a cardinal or a bishop. That's from Elena Bonner, a secular Russian human rights activist, the wife of a famous Soviet dissident. Her words just cut right to the core of a man whose courage would, quite literally, challenge empires.
But here's the thing. To really understand the massive impact of his papacy, you have to look past the office, past the white robes, and get to know the man he was before all that, Karol Wojtyła. This guy wasn't just a priest. He was an artist, an intellectual, an actor in an underground theater during the Nazi occupation, a playwright, a poet, and a serious philosopher. And that background, it shaped everything that came next.
Okay, so the absolute key to his entire papacy, to everything he did, lies in the powerful ideas he developed while living under two of the most brutal regimes in history, the Nazis and the Soviets. Those experiences forged a philosophy built on one single, unshakable belief.
And that central idea is called personalism. Now, just think about the ideologies he was up against. Nazism and communism. Both of them saw the individual as nothing, just a cog in the machine of the state or the collective. Personalism was the polar opposite. It argues that every single human being has a deep, inherent dignity that can never, ever be erased. This wasn't just some dusty old theory for him. It was the intellectual weapon he was going to use against any system that tried to crush the human spirit.
In this quote, it just nails his point. He argued that we don't find out who we really are by taking or by consuming things. We find our true selves in the free and sincere gift of ourselves to other people. This idea that our humanity is fulfilled through love and self-giving, it was the bedrock of everything he taught.
This philosophy really found its most famous voice in what he called the theology of the body. He argued that our bodies aren't just biological shells. They actually reveal who we are as people. They're made for connection, for communion, not for being used as objects. He taught that the body has a nuptial meaning, which is a fancy way of saying it's designed to express a total gift of self and love. This was a direct challenge to a world that was, and is, increasingly reducing people to objects.
All right, so let's shift gears and see how this powerful idea of human dignity actually became a world-changing force. Because when this philosopher became pope, his core belief was put on a direct collision course with the totalitarian might of communism.
So in June of 1979, John Paul II goes back home to his native Poland for the first time as pope. And this number, 3 million, that's the estimated crowd that greeted him on his very first day in Krakow. To put that into perspective, that's about 1/10 of the entire nation's population showing up on day one.
That 9-day trip was so much more than a papal visit. It was a national reawakening. By just being there, he reminded the Polish people of their 1,000-year-old culture, their faith, their inherent dignity, everything that the communist regime had tried to stamp out. This revolution of conscience, as it's been called, is what gave birth to the Solidarity movement, the independent trade union that would eventually bring the whole system down.
You can trace a direct and pretty dramatic line from that first visit to what happened next. Less than 2 years later, a gunman shoots him in St. Peter's Square. Then, by 1989, the Solidarity movement he'd inspired had grown so powerful that it forced the regime into semi-free elections, which they won in a total landslide, peacefully ending communist rule. It's an incredible sequence of events.
And the Soviets? They knew exactly how dangerous he was. This isn't just speculation. We have their own internal documents. The head of the KGB, Yuri Andropov, recognized that John Paul II wasn't playing the old game of cautious diplomacy. He was creating a moral and spiritual showdown that their tanks and secret police had no answer for. But his vision wasn't just about confronting oppression. At its heart, it was constructive. He spent his papacy trying to build bridges between people, between different generations, and, maybe most radically of all, between different faiths. He also had this incredible gift for connecting with a new generation, which is what led him to create World Youth Day. For the very first one, check out these numbers. Organizers were hoping for maybe 60,000 young people. The actual turnout? Over 250,000. He just had this uncanny ability to inspire young people and call them to something bigger than themselves.
Now, to really appreciate how groundbreaking his next move was, you have to remember what the world was like in the mid-80s. I mean, it was tense. The Cold War was still raging. The Iran-Iraq War was costing hundreds of thousands of lives. Conflicts were just burning all over the globe. The world felt hopelessly divided.
So against that backdrop of war, he does something no pope in history had ever even thought of doing. He invited religious leaders from all over the world. We're talking Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, even traditional African animists, to come to Assisi, Italy, to stand together and pray for peace. He was showing the world that beyond all the politics and economics, there was a spiritual path to peace that could unite all of humanity.
So how do you remember a life that monumental? Well, when he died in 2005, the whole world mourned. But for the Catholic Church, his journey wasn't quite over.
The call for him to be recognized as a saint was immediate and overwhelming. Following the Church's official process, 2 miracles attributed to his prayers were confirmed. First, the healing of a French nun from Parkinson's disease, and second, the medically inexplicable cure of a woman from Costa Rica, Floribeth Mora Diaz, who had a brain aneurysm. And that led to his canonization in 2014, in one of the fastest sainthood processes in modern history.
So when you step back, his legacy is just multifaceted. Philosophically, he put the dignity of the person back at the center of the conversation. Geopolitically, he was a major moral force in the peaceful collapse of communism. And pastorally, he totally re-energized the Church's outreach to young people and pioneered dialogue between religions. And all of it, every single bit, flowed from that one powerful idea: the incredible value of the human person. Ultimately, the story of John Paul II leaves us with a question that really echoes in our own time, doesn't it? In an age that feels so full of deep ideological and political division, what can we learn from the actor, the poet, the philosopher, and the Pope who faced down totalitarianism by betting everything on the inviolable dignity of every single person?